We are watching as early numbers come in from California. Polls closed there more than an hour ago. Our panel is still here. Ed O'Keefe is a CBS News political correspondent. Caitlin Huey-Burns is a CBSN political contributor and national political reporter for RealClearPolitics. Hari Sevugan is a Democratic strategist and partner at 270 Strategies. Leslie Sanchez is a CBS News contributor and Republican strategist. We will chat with them in a moment. But first, Stephen Colbert offered former President Bill Clinton a second chance to address Monica Lewinsky and the Me Too movement after his contentious interview with the Today Show earlier this week. Here's some of what he said.
I watched on the Today Show yesterday morning. I noticed you didn't enjoy that entire interview. I want you to enjoy this one, but I do want to ask you something, which is when I got home last night, on the CNN, they had a lower third banner that said something about William Clinton's tone-deaf response to the question from the Today Show. My question is, would you like a do-over on that answer? Do you understand why some people thought that was a tone-deaf response to his questions about the Me Too movement and how you might reflect on your behavior 20 years ago and how that reflection may change based on what you've learned through the Me Too movement?
Yeah, when I saw the interview, I thought that because they had to, distill it. And it looked like I was saying I didn't apologize and I had no intention to, and I was mad at me.
Well, you said in the interview that you did apologize. You said you apologized in the interview.
Did, and they showed a film clip finally. But here's what I want to say. It wasn't my finest hour, but the important thing is that was a very painful thing that happened 20 years ago, and I apologize to my family, to Monica Lewinsky and her family, to the American people. I meant it then, I meant it now. I've had to live with the consequences every day since. And I still believe this Me Too movement is long overdue, necessary, and should be supported.
All right, let's bring in the panel right now. And Caitlin, let me start with you. As an answer, how do you think that particular version of the question that he was asked earlier might or might not resonate?
I don't think he did anything to clean it up. In fact, I think, Stephen Colbert offered him a runway to, correct or, change or apologize more specifically for his comment. And in fact, he again turned it to himself and his own feelings about this and the consequences that he feels that he suffered from this. I just think it's remarkable. And we've seen this in politics. We've seen this in the entertainment industry. These people have had at least 7 months to come up with a response. I'm dating that back to the Weinstein coverage that kind of broke all of this out in the open in terms of Me Too, to come up with a thoughtful answer. Bill Clinton has had decades. And the fact is that, there are a lot of Democrats, and Hari can speak to this better than I can, who, want to embrace this kind of new culture change that we've seen. And Bill Clinton is a reminder of the impediments to that, right? I can't imagine that a lot of Democratic candidates will want him out campaigning for them.
What about some areas? Hari?
Yeah, I think this speaks to the dynamics going on in the Democratic Party right now, and the power of the Me Too movement within the party. President Clinton, as someone who's worked on a number of Democratic campaigns, President Clinton was always our biggest get. If we can get Bill Clinton to do an event for us or a fundraiser for us, that's the biggest thing we could do on that campaign. I don't think that's the case this year for a number of reasons, and that speaks to the shift in the culture in the party, but also the shift in the power within the party. I think that overall is a good thing for the party.
And Leslie, from a Republican point of view, does the continued presence of Bill Clinton and moments like the one that we just saw there give Republicans then some sort of ability to pivot faster when the issue of Donald Trump and questions about his background are brought up?
No. I think Republicans have been just as bad at articulating a thoughtful response to the same type of thing, because it swings both ways. I think on the Republican side, it's put many candidates, because of Trump, many of Trump's statements and his past actions have put many candidates in a very uncomfortable position, of which they do not have a thoughtful response. And we've had Republican women, too, very much be concerned about the fact the party can't lead on this issue in a better way or more, and I go back to a thoughtful way. So there's still a lot of conversation. It's not as overt as you see on the Democratic side, but there is struggling. And you will see Republican women specifically in leadership trying to get a smoother path and a smoother way forward.
There's an electoral consequence to be paid on the Democratic side. What we saw tonight with Martha Roby's race in Alabama, there isn't as much of a consequence on the Republican side. Currently, I think that's going to change over time, and it has to.
She spoke out after the Access Hollywood tape, right. Just to let viewers know, give us a little of that background. She's a Republican, but after the Access Hollywood tape came out, she was one of the very few Republicans to come out, and especially being in a state as red as Alabama, right. and decried and denounced that. So,
exactly. Yeah. So the consequences just aren't there on the Republican side yet. The consequences are deep and immediate on the Republican side, or I'm sorry, on the Democratic side this year.
Yeah, and so Ed, do you think we will likely not be seeing much more of Bill Clinton on the campaign trail?
I can't imagine any Democrat would want to be seen with him right now. I mean, I talked to one strategist earlier this week who said the only way she would advise a Democratic candidate to engage the former president is in fundraising, and only then maybe during a primary, not necessarily in the general election. Maybe have him come to a closed-door fundraiser, but that's it. And again, it would be a very specific instance that the risk-reward is so off balance, there's no point. The other thing we have to remember, we've elected 3 presidents since he was president. Mm-hmm. The only reason he remains so relevant, of course, is because of his wife, who clearly struggled with this issue as well.
Well, he was out there doing his book tour with James Patterson.
Right. I mean, but this is what so many people feared would happen were he first gentleman. And can you imagine if he was, and all of this Me Too stuff had begun in the wake of her victory in an alternative universe, the headaches he would have created for his wife were she president. But just fascinating that again tonight he gets offered probably the easiest softball pitch he could ask for, and he turned it into a problem for himself again. And again, fails to realize that that is not where the country's psyche is on this anymore. And he can continue to insist that this was a different time and it was 20 years ago, and it was. But for him to fail to see that, you know, attitudes and concerns about this have changed, and that people, you know, a lot of people probably expect an apology from him again. It's just, you know, it just seems like such a gimme.
The interesting part of that, when you talk about a lot of people, there is a generational divide, even among women. So we saw that when Hillary Clinton ran, right? You had a lot of the women who were like, you're standing on the shoulders, we need the first female president. And the others were like, I like the independence that we have because of the female movement, that I want to be able to pick whatever candidate I want. It's the same kind of thing. There is a whole generation of women who do not know the history of that because they didn't live it like we did. Right. We were there, but that are now understanding that narrative and framing it in stark contrast, you know, or stark comparison to the Me Too movement, which is a very harsh lens by which to view it. And back then it was a very difficult thing to go through, but now it's just reawakening that again for a new generation, and that has a consequence.
Hari, so Ed brought up, you know, Hillary Clinton. What about her on the campaign trail now? I mean, we won't be seeing Bill Clinton necessarily, but how might this complicate efforts by those Democrats who perhaps did want to have her out there campaigning for them?
I don't know if this necessarily complicates or it rubs off on Hillary as much. And I think that, you know, she'll be used pretty strategically. There are these 7 districts in California, for example, that we're talking about tonight that she won. That are held by Republicans and have a Republican representative in the House. I wouldn't be surprised to see her there. You know, key to the victory in those districts, in the districts in Pennsylvania, the districts in New Jersey, the districts in Virginia that Democrats are targeting are going to be women. And I think Hillary still represents especially in the wake of the result on November 8, 2016, still represents a motivating force for women to come out and vote.
You've had some pretty powerful voices, though, in the celebrity world decrying, President Clinton's comments earlier on the Today Show. You've had like Rose McGowan tweeting, voices that, traditionally you would think are those voices that would want to have a Hillary Clinton out there. But now, doesn't it present a complex dynamic to have her, even though she is not her husband? Nevertheless, there are people who want to keep this at the forefront of the conversation, regardless of whether we see the former president or not.
Yeah. And listen, I think she's going to have a cleaner answer than she did in 2016, or she's had, actually for the last 2 decades. Certainly. And I think, but if she does that, I think there's enough goodwill amongst Democratic voters, amongst the sort of independent suburban women that she's going to be in front of this fall, that she'll be okay.
All right.
She'll be an asset.
All right, we are keeping an eye on California Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom's campaign headquarters, where he is expected to come out at any moment. He is advanced to the November general election. Stay with us. This is CBSN.